Cracking open a crispy boy. Hey folks, welcome back to another Gambit Update. We are your hosts, Andrew Essig and Shawn Crocker. Welcome back, Shawn.
Pleasure to be here.
As always. Today we got a couple of topics to give you the quick overview. We're going to do a competition update because that's been super fun. I don't know what we're going to talk about when competition's over, but we're going to dip our toe into that pool a little bit today, talking about non-CrossFit topics. So we got a little competition update. Team Quarterfinals just wrapped up this weekend. We're going to get into a little segment we're going to call What We're Watching. And then we're going to talk about practice versus competition, kind of in the gym, both for the elite level athlete and the everyday gym goer. So we'll get right into it with the competition update. Shawn, did you get to see all of the team workouts take place?
No, I saw 1, 2, 3, and 4. I missed 5, which I'm very sad about because that was the one I was very excited to watch happen live. But the 4 workouts I did, the team looked like they were working really good together. Had some strong performances. I did miss one of the retests, but
great like cohesiveness, I think, within the team, which is why it's been really fun. To watch that group. So where it stands, we'll get right to the nitty-gritty. The team is currently, so that in North America, the whole world is divided into regions, and we did 5 events over the course of 3 days. So on Friday, we had to submit 2 scores of the first 2 workouts. Saturday, we had to submit 2 scores by 2 p.m., and then Sunday, we had to submit the final score. And you can complete those workouts in any order, but the submissions have to be in that order. So we got all our workouts submitted. They take the top 80 teams from North America. So each region's a little bit different. North America takes the top 80 teams. CrossFit Gambit is currently ranked 80th.
Right on the nose.
So we don't know. There'll be video reviews and stuff might shift around a little bit, but as we understand it right now, that is the standing. So we kind of squeaked in just by the skin of our teeth. And I think, just kind of looking at the leaderboard, there are a lot of names, team names that are recognized that are, I don't know the best way to put it, but more serious teams than Gambit. Not to say that we just kind of like slapped a few people together and put out a team, but these are people that live totally normal lives. I mean, aside from Kelly, obviously, who's a former games athlete, but she's officially retired now, and while, as I say, continuing to ride the wave of fitness and training that she's accumulated over the last decade, still is just kind of taking class and doing the pretty normal fitness routine now.
I mean, you're looking at teams that that's their full-time job is training in a lot of these cases.
And Joel's a full-time police officer. Corey works as an office administrator full-time. Clayton is something with the health department. Statistics or something. It's a little beyond my scope, but
all have full-time jobs.
Yeah, point being, they all have full-time jobs. And Kelly, even though she works in the gym, is a full-time gym manager, and programmer, head coach, all that kind of stuff. And that does eat into your time. So that said, I mean, we're ranked pretty close to some really super fit teams. I mean, CrossFit 417, been to the games a bunch of times. We know them fairly well. Kelly competed with them one year. They're 69th place. CrossFit Wildwood out in Wildwood, Missouri, 71st place. I know their owner Mike is super fit. Three Kings CrossFit Black. That's a team that I've seen a bunch of times at the game. 64th place. Super competitive team. Blues City. They're all about competing. 64th place. So I think in my mind, that's just a lot of credit to how good the coaching, programming, and kind of the cohesiveness of the team, because I know some of these athletes on some of these other teams are objectively fitter than some of the athletes on our team, but strategy and that cohesiveness comes into play a lot.
Yeah, especially with the test that we had this year, there's a lot of teamwork. I mean, the synchro toe to bar and 80 reps for each pair in totality, it's a pretty tall ask of people. It's a hard movement to synchronize.
Yeah, absolutely. So to break it down a little bit, I'll probably superimpose some stuff up on the screen, but workout 1 was not synchro, but a bunch of handstand walking and dumbbell work, right? Was it handstand walking? Yeah.
Yeah, handstand
walking, dumbbell work. The way these workouts are kind of crazy to read if you look them up online. I still am having trouble kind of fully took me a solid 10 minutes to wrap my head around this workout. So long story short, one athlete's doing some dumbbell work. The other athlete is the other part of a pair, male-male, female-female pair, I think, or male-female pair, whatever, doesn't matter, is doing handstand walks. Then they're doing dumbbell front rack lunges, handstand walks, then pistol squats, handstand walks. Gambit took 81st in that workout. And then the second workout was a relay workout of burpees over a line and shuttle sprints in the gym, 25-foot shuttle sprints, which, as we can attest to from testing an individual quarterfinal workout, those shuttle sprints are no joke.
No.
They don't look like much.
They're easy to dismiss, and then they catch up to you.
Absolutely devastating. 138th place in that. It was actually their worst finish, which we thought would be a strong finish, actually, but ended up being the worst. Third workout, as I pull it up here on the screen, was
beautiful strength test.
Yeah, male 1, male 2 goes, female 1, female 2 goes for 5 clean and jerks at a weight, 4 clean and jerks at a heavier weight, 3 clean and jerks heavier weight, all the way down to 2 and 1, with a 2-minute break between the males and the females there. And we took 50th in that workout. It was a really strong performance. Yeah. Ended up testing that effectively 2.5 times. That was an interesting one because that final bar for the men is at 275 and the women's bar is at
185.
185, and that's no joke. I mean, I think even in my heyday, I was clean and jerking in excess of 275, but just to be able to walk in and hit 275 in a workout was still a very tall order. So, really proud of our athletes for hitting all those weights.
And they all made that bar look so light.
We went through, so we decided to do a retest and shave some time off. Went through the whole thing. Joel and Clayton working through the whole barbell, get all the way to the final barbell, and Clay misses the 275 like 3 times. And I think just went a little too hot, so we call it, cut the workout, because we're already behind what our first time was. Rest up 45 minutes or something, and then do the whole workout again. And it's crazy to see, to be able to do that. So that was 5, for the men, 5 clean and jerks at 185, 4 at 205, 3 at 225, 2 at 245, and then 1 at 275. And I ended up doing that whole workout 3 times. So,
and you're talking such a short time to get all of that work done too. I mean, what were their times, like 4 minutes, sub 4 minutes, something around there?
It's here. So total time was 6 minutes 43.
So like
between the two, so 320 basically for the males and 320 for the females.
Insane.
So
that's so fast.
Super impressive. And they ended up improving on that. So then the fourth workout was all the synchro work, like Shawn had mentioned earlier. 40 synchro toe to bar, 30 synchro box jumps, synchro dumbbell snatches, 10 rope climbs, and then back down 20 synchro dumbbell snatches, box jumps, toes to bar, and that was male pair first, I think, or female pair first, then male pair first for total time, which ours was 22:02 for a 38th place finish.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Which was like not what we, it's just wild. Not what we expected to be the best finish to be. I think we thought we'd place a lot better in that burpee shuttle sprint workout. Lastly, relay style, male 1, female 1, male 2, female 2, 27 thrusters, 21 chest to bar pull-ups, 15 thrusters at a heavier weight, and then 9 ring muscle-ups. So really short, kind of sprinty workout. And for a lot of the upper echelon of CrossFit athletes, probably close to unbroken, but like I would say, as one of the workouts was in the individual quarterfinals, or maybe it was the open. If you're not doing this unbroken, you should break it a lot. It's like there's a fine line there, and on one side, in just my opinion as a coach, you're going to break this up a lot, or pretty much not at all, or very little. There should be a big gap between that fine line. So 21 thruster weight number 1 was 95 for the gentlemen, 65 for the ladies. 15 thrusters at the second bar was 135 for the gentlemen and 95 for the ladies, which I don't know about you, Shawn, but I'm not doing 15 thrusters at 135 unbroken.
No, the open proved that.
And that was when we retested, because going big on both the chest to bar pull-ups and that heavy thruster bar resulted in a big mess on ring muscle-ups.
Sure.
If you're not super confident on those rings, 9 ring muscle-ups is a big set under fatigue. So that's another one that we retested because we just got poor result on those rings. And what's what I find interesting is when we retested, Kelly's split was like 5 seconds slower than her first test. Joel's split was also like 5 or 7 seconds slower, I think. Corey's was 7 seconds faster, but Clayton's was like a minute faster.
Oh my gosh.
So we ended up shaving a bunch of time.
Yeah.
I think we saved like 40 seconds or something. So, you know, and I'm just fascinated by those little things where, like, you know, Kelly and Joel feel bad because they didn't perform as well.
Sure.
But with a change of strategy and change of approach, we still ended up netting a 40-second gain, which pretty much got us that was 85th place finish in that one with a total of 18 minutes 39 seconds, which pretty much helped us lock in that 80th place qualifying spot for semifinals. So again, to give you that update, the next step would be semifinals, which is an in-person competition, which we did last year in Knoxville, Tennessee, and there are multiple locations, I think 3 or 4 locations in the United States or North America for potential, and if we end up qualifying, nothing's guaranteed at this point. There's still video reviews to happen, so like other teams could get docked points or disqualified altogether. We could move up, we could move down if we're docked points. We don't know. Right now we're right on that at-risk spot. But they'll send us a email and we'll vote, put in our vote for which quarterfinal we would like most to attend, and then they kind of seed everybody into semifinals, seed us into semifinals based on that. And I don't recall, I know last year like Knoxville was a choice, Vegas was a choice. It might be a little bit different this year, but I think
they shuffled around some semifinals for this year. But
yeah, more on that as it develops, and we'll keep you posted. We do still have in 2 weeks the age group online qualifiers, which I'm still under the impression that I've been invited to. I think I got my informal invite, so I should get my formal invite theoretically. I'm in no danger of qualifying for the CrossFit Games or semifinals, but I will complete them just for fun. Kelly may also complete those just for fun. I'm sure we'll have a few people around the gym just kind of doing them to do them to see where we might stack up. But yeah, team's kind of our main focus, so we'll keep you up to date on that as it develops. Now, a new segment. We're going to try out new segments all the time, and some of them may repeat, and some of them you may never see a second time. But what we're watching, and I think like it'll just kind of be like, what are we watching? What are we reading up on? What are we trying? Like just kind of a quick. So we've got a team update. What's an us update? What are you watching, Shawn?
So I spent the whole weekend learning a lot about coffee roasting. A topic I've been interested in for a little bit. Finally had a little extra time this weekend, so took a deep dive into different roasters, how to roast coffee, different techniques, how to kind of source different beans from different locations. So it's been what I learned about this weekend.
Are you, and to what end? Are you hoping to roast your own coffee? Or
yeah, I think so.
What kind of infrastructure are we working with that? Is that like
so it turns out
big expenditure? Do you need like a building for this? Or?
No, so it turns out to roast coffee, all you really need is an oven.
Okay.
But you can
like just a regular conventional oven. Okay.
You can even do it on a campfire.
Oh wow.
So
I'm into that.
You can go as basic as like $0.
So
you've got a cast iron skillet.
You could buy 10 pounds of coffee and go camping.
You could.
Roast some coffee while we're out.
But you can, this is such a sliding scale. So you can go up to like commercial specific coffee roasters that fine tune temperature and times and things like this. That are multi-thousands of dollars.
Sure.
Turns out a lot of people when they're first starting just get old popcorn roasters and just kind of use those.
Okay.
So I've been looking at a coffee roaster. It's about $200, $250. And I think that's kind of where I'm going to start and kind of build up from there if I like it.
Why would one want to roast their own coffee?
Great question.
Is it a money saving thing or is it just a flavor thing?
You definitely save money. And how much kind of depends on where you source your beans from. Like you can,
and how much coffee you're drinking.
How much coffee you're absolutely, absolutely. And like
Shawn's gonna save $7,000 a year on coffee.
But I think a lot of it for me is like just kind of diving into the process of coffee. Like over COVID, I got really into espresso. And that just kind of allows you to fine tune kind of the extraction of the coffee bean. It allows you to kind of pick up different flavor notes and profiles. And then I think roasting the beans just kind of takes that to the next step, right? You kind of go from this raw green coffee bean and then you can roast it. Obviously like light roast to dark roast, there's so many different flavor profiles in there. And I think to me it's just a something I nerd out on. I love kind of the process of taking it from this raw bean to a cup of coffee in your hand.
Yeah.
I think it's just another way to kind of dive into that.
I mean, it's kind of like people that, I think people that like distill their own whiskey and stuff.
Oh, yeah,
or like
exactly.
get really into wine. People brew their own beer.
Yeah.
It's totally. Kelly and I kind of go through phases, and usually for me it's been like wine and bourbon. I'll kind of fluctuate back and forth.
Sure.
And I do enjoy coffee. It's never struck me that I'd want to roast my own, but I enjoy like the brewing process. I'm always fascinated by like new coffee makers and stuff. But 100%. I mean, like not unlike wine and whiskey, the cost escalates very quickly.
Yeah, for sure.
Pretty soon you're looking at a $4,000. Should I buy this $4,000 coffee maker right now? And then you start thinking, no wait, that's like a car for somebody. That's just crazy.
Yeah. So that's what I spent the weekend. What about you? What are you watching?
Well, I'll flash back because I think it's way more entertaining than what I have been watching most recently is the little clips, the snippets, the like stories that pop up on YouTube of like, I don't know what the term is, fascinating objects, but like just things that are just cool. And like one of them was, I can't remember what the guy called it, but it was like a magic ring or something. And it just looks like a ring you might put on your finger, but it kind of has like 2 pieces of metal wrapped around. It almost looks like an infinity symbol or something. But and it's really dumb and simple, but when you roll it on the table, it looks like it shouldn't, like it looks like it's defying physics. It's one of those things where it's like, it's kind of like the swinging ball thing you can put on your desk where you're just like fascinated looking at it. So stuff like that, and I haven't like started purchasing anything, but I'm just watching the little snippet videos. The other one is Japanese puzzle boxes, which are like, they're like wooden boxes that look like, a lot of times they look like objects. Like one was like a bento box, so it looks like one of those little boxes with like sushi fixins and stuff in it. And the idea is that there's a compartment in there, and you have to deliver a very specific, or perform a very specific order of manipulations or tasks or something to get this thing to open. And it could be like a big thing, like this big, and then there's this tiny little compartment where you can like fold up a note or, I don't even know, but they're just like really interesting. You have to like, sometimes you have to like bang them on their side to like get a piece of metal to shift inside, and then you can pull one was like looked like a shrimp, sushi with a little shrimp tail, like a carved wooden shrimp tail coming out of it, and you had to like bang it a certain way, and then the shrimp tail would pull out, and there was a compartment in there. Just fascinating. But I wanted to flash back to the topic that you and I discussed previously, which is the Kentucky Fried Chicken YouTube channel. which I discovered through someone else's YouTube video, and maybe I'll link it if you guys are so inclined.
You should 100% link it.
Long story short, I haven't delved into the actual Kentucky Fried Chicken YouTube channel, but I delved into. Did you?
I did.
So I sent Shawn this video. There's a guy named JonTron who does videos on YouTube, and he did a video about Kentucky Fried Chicken's YouTube channel, and it was mind-blowing. Long story short, and it still is going to seem like a long story, but I think there's way more to this, but there's a guy that runs a kind of a debate or talk show where it's a kind of a mediator, and he pulls questions out of a KFC fried chicken bucket, which is great. And then 2 people sit on either side of him, and they are on opposite sides of a topic. And the most recent one was, are we living in a simulation? And so they bring in a guy who full on believes that we are in a simulation, that we're all actually dead, like all humans are dead, and we are all AIs inside of simulation, and the simulation is being run by snow crabs or king crabs, some type of crab.
Crabs. It's all crabs.
It's crabs. Yeah. So that's pretty great. So check it out. Maybe I'll throw a link in the description. The video about the video, I suspect, is probably a better spend of your time than the actual video.
I think they're both great uses of time.
Great uses of time. I don't know if I'd go that far. That's stretching it out. So anyway, we'll pull it back around to actual fitness, gym-related topics, which is kind of delving a little bit further into a topic we touched on previously, which is like the cyclical programming in the gym, and also the concept of practice versus competition, or practice versus performance. And what I want to kind of lead into that with is a scenario that we've heard a lot of times over the years, which is, I got this friend, or maybe it's a specific individual, they come in, they do a tour of the gym, and I'm sure you've heard this as a person who delivers a lot of our No Sweat Intro gym tours. I need to go get in shape before I join this gym.
Yeah.
And what is your usual response?
It's such a like and
deep breath.
I'll to even expand this, like we'll have members that are wanting to return that still kind of follow that same thread. It's like I just need to get in better shape before I come back. It's like that's literally what we do. We get you in shape.
The purpose of CrossFit.
Yeah, we build your your capacities. We build your ability to perform and function and all of this stuff. It's like I think a lot of it kind of just comes down to ego, right? Especially for those that are returning, but even so for like newer members, that's kind of the beauty of CrossFit. It's what got me in and got me interested, and that's kind of what led me here. Is it's whether you're 80 or you're 80 and you haven't done fitness ever in your life, or you're 21 years old, fire breather. It's like you guys can do the same workout. It's just going to vary by degree, not difficulty.
Yeah, and that's the quote I always throw out as a Greg Glassman quote of the needs, and I believe it's a Greg Glassman quote, the needs of the Olympic athlete and the senior citizen vary by degree, not by type, which is to say that everybody needs to be able to perform a squat, but that squat might look a lot different for an Olympic athlete with 500 pounds on his back versus a senior citizen squatting to a box
with their body weight.
With their body weight, or a PVC pipe, or a light pair of dumbbells. But I think ego is definitely a big factor. I also think it's the inconvenience factor. Like, oh, I don't want the coach to have to spend a bunch of time modifying things for me, and you tell people like that's like literally what we do.
It's our job. But I love doing it.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that. I kind of touched on this topic in our master's class this morning briefly, and somebody said, I think that. I don't think people are aware of how this gym operates necessarily. That I think that we do kind of lose sight as coaches and as owner. We're not constantly dropping into other people's gyms, and we do kind of lose sight of the fact that like not every gym is this well equipped to handle these types of things. But if you're that person, or you've got that friend who's kind of saying, I want to come check out the gym, but I literally heard this objection this weekend at a party. Somebody said, this is my friend, I'm trying to get him to come into the gym. He's got a shoulder thing going on. And I said, man, not only can we work around that shoulder, because he gives me the usual objections. Well, I just really want to get it straightened out before I come in. I want to be able to do everything. It's kind of like, well, not only, and his friend that's our current member who's trying to get him to come in says, man, I've never done a workout that wasn't scaled or modified in some way, and I've been coming here for a long time.
Yeah.
So he gives us his usual objections, and then it's, hey, we're totally ready to handle that. And not only are we prepared to handle that, but we're prepared to help improve that situation. We're not physical therapists, we're not doctors, and we understand that, and we're not trying to steer out of our lane, but we understand how bodies work and how to strengthen things, and also how to keep you in a pain-free range of motion and keep you moving, because moving in a pain-free range of motion with or without that injured body part is never going to be a waste of time. Like that's the most common objection I get is like classic example. I've got a knee thing going on, let's say somebody's got a knee thing going on, and I'll say, well, hey, here's a question. When this injury heals and you get on the other side of this, do you want to have one strong leg or two weak legs? What do you think sounds better?
Yeah.
And insert whatever it is there. Or somebody say like, well, I can't squat, whatever. I've got some undiscriminate situation and I just can't squat. I can't do single leg squats. I can't do this, whatever. And my response is, well, how are your pull-ups? They're not great. Do you want to get better at them?
You don't need to pull up.
So you can still come into class. But that kind of, I'll throw one more anecdote in there before we get into the nuts and bolts of cyclical programming. Is a direct situation that just happened to me yesterday. I have an exchange with a friend of mine. He's in his 40s, and he says, man, he's never been into this gym, and I don't know that he's been into many other gyms or any other gyms. Not a fitness minded individual. But he says, well, I really wanted to get into the gym, and I went out and played basketball with some friends for the first time in a long time the other night, and kind of jacked up my knee. So I really want to get into the gym, but now I got this knee thing going on. And I'm like, well, okay, let's reverse that priority. Let's go to the gym before we go play basketball, because you're in this super dynamic environment in basketball. You're doing plyometrics, you're stopping, you're cutting,
A
lot of impact. You're trying to jump really high in the air. And I mean, I'm 38 years old, and I'll tell you, somebody got a balloon stuck in the rafters on Saturday, and I was like, I'm not prepared to jump up and grab that. So I'm like, can you jump up there? I'm like, yeah, I need to warm up a little bit first. Like, let me get my ankles ready to go. Like, don't get me wrong, I can jump, but not to that height. So, that whole mindset of, let me do this, like people get hung up on CrossFit being this really intense thing, or maybe they think about the games or something, and they forget about the foundational aspect of, let's just get in shape. That's what CrossFit, that's why it exists. That's why it was created, was to get people better at other tasks.
Yeah, so, I think like, kind of going back to that, as much as I love the sport of CrossFit, obviously, that's kind of how we started the show off. It's like, you've got to separate kind of what happens in the gym from what happens on YouTube or at these semifinals or these competitive stages, right?
Yeah.
It's like CrossFit was founded to bridge the gap and make people better.
Well, it's like I love a good metaphor, and I always say, like, I use metaphors with things that I understand that tend to be different than what most people kind of understand well in the gym, because I'm not like a big sports person. So I'll throw stuff in, like car analogies are one of my favorite. It's like, okay, so when you're talking about, you're looking at people doing the CrossFit games, doing muscle ups, handstand walks, all this stuff. Oh, I can't do that. I can't come into the gym and do that. Okay, well, what you're saying is that you can't drive a car because you watched a Formula One race.
Right.
Like, you can still improve your driving skills and habits and abilities, and maybe even like go buy a new car or whatever without buying a $40 million Formula One car and ripping around a racetrack at 185 miles an hour.
Yeah.
You're just looking at two totally different things. So that said, let's talk briefly about practice versus competition.
Yeah.
And I think one of the simplest ways to put that is, practice is like, to use this basketball situation, it's like, well, what if we had this person come into the gym and we're practicing jumping on a box, we're practicing doing some single leg movements, we're lunging, he's getting his shoulders warmed up, maybe he's doing some wall balls, all this kind of stuff where he's dynamically moving in a very controlled, sustainable, measurable environment. Then he goes out on the basketball court and he's making very unpredictable movements and, jumping in what I always use the term like dynamic environment or a dynamic setting, because it's like, you don't know what, like when he jumps up, you're in basketball and you jump up to grab a rebound or put a layup in, like you don't necessarily know what's going to be underneath you when you come back down. And you kind of leap without looking, like you leap towards the basket without thinking about where you're going to land on the other side, for example, or you're dribbling towards the hoop and somebody comes in, you don't know which direction you're going to have to go in, where in the gym we have control over all those factors. And just to break it down even further, the difference between, to use the scale of 9 foundational movements in CrossFit, you have the progression of like deadlift, clean, snatch, right? Yeah. Snatch being the most explosive, most dynamic movement, clean being maybe a little bit less so, and then deadlift kind of being the simplest expression of that pull. The deadlift it can be as slow as you want it to be, it can be as light as you want it to be, and it's kind of the foundation of that whole train of thought as far as movements go. And on a cyclical basis in the gym, that's what we're trying to put into place for everyone from the brand new gym goer to the elite athlete is, hey, it's post game season, it's a perfect time for us to put the whole gym on a seasonal kind of cyclical template and say, let's focus on the deadlift. Then a few months later, we'll reintroduce the clean and the snatch, because we've gone back to this foundational movement, which is great not only for the new members, but also for the existing members to get back to that foundational level. Yeah. And like as a middle of the road, I don't know what a term for us would be, but experienced but non-elite CrossFitter or fitness individual, how do can you speak to this experience, and how old are you now, Shawn?
32.
Okay. So, and I'm 38, and I've had to run the cycle a fair number of times. Sure. And every couple of years, I kind of have to reevaluate not only just my year, but maybe my decade or my 3 to 5 year plan. Hey, I'm probably not planning on snatching 250 for a while right now. And maybe I'll get back to it someday, but right now I really need to slow things down or change my approach. Does that mean I've missed coming to the gym. I come to
Yeah.
a class all the time.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm in a good spot right now, specifically with kind of what you and I have been working on. And I've had to take a step back and just relearn how to squat again, right? Like, I consider myself a decent squatter. I've got great mobility.
Shawn likes to squat like this.
Also deadlift like that.
Now he likes to squat like this. It's good we had these here.
I see. But just like speaking to that, it's like, the air squat is such a foundational movement. Like as someone who does a lot of our on-ramp classes, that's one of the first things I teach people how to do is how do we do an air squat, right? Now I've been doing CrossFit, like I've been in the, fitnessing, for 6 years. It's like 6 years in, I'm still working on how to air squat, right? That's going to help front squats, back squats, overhead squats, this, that, and the other. Like, it's so valuable to go back to those kind of bare minimum movements, things that you would expect everyone to be able to do. Even like, and I remember when we were going into the open, I went through and watched like an hour-long video on just burpee nuance, right? Like, you don't get much more simple than a burpee, but there's so much that you can dive into and delve into with hand placement and all of this stuff. So I think just going back to those kind of foundational movements, rebuilding them time and time again, and what's a virtuosity? Yeah. Right. Doing the simple, I love that. Doing the simple movements with as much perfection as you can leads to just better movement and strength.
I love the word. I love the term virtuosity. I'm glad you said that, because it's a lot of people don't know what that means, and I can't recite the actual definition to you right now, but I can tell you what it means is like people think about virtuosity all the time in terms of like playing a violin. Like, musical instruments are a great expression of that, because when you are really virtuous at playing a violin, you get all the kind of nuance of the volume of certain notes, or the aggressiveness, like staccato, hard fast notes, like all the little timing tempo stuff. Piano is a great example of that, where you can hear the difference between a piano student playing the exact same notes with roughly the same tempo as a very experienced pianist, and they'll sound completely different. But nobody really thinks about that in terms of, I shouldn't say nobody, but few people think of that in terms of like a squat, a deadlift, a clean, or a snatch. And obviously elite level Olympic weightlifters do, because if you watch me do a snatch and Lydia Valentin or Maddie Rogers do a snatch.
Like that. And like if you watch like Miso Hasana or Maddie Rogers, every single time, whether it's an empty bar or their max lift, they approach the bar the same way. They do the same, like Miso Hasana, I think, is the best example of this, because he does a left, right, left foot tap on the ground. He sets, he looks like he has this very explicit, even to where he finishes overhead, he'll look left, he'll look right, he'll drop. Yeah. It's like every single movement is exactly the same, whether it's, again, empty bar or his 1 rep max. Yeah.
I love that. And that's in weightlifting class, that's a lot of times I encourage people to develop a little bit of a routine or a little habit, because it helps you kind of set those movement points and that kind of that ideal setup position. Yeah. It just kind of helps you refine that, because you're never too good to improve, and you're never too good to learn. And as soon as you kind of focus on, now that I've got pull-ups are a great example, because I think a lot of gyms forget about strict pull-ups, or fail to acknowledge the kipping pull-up still catches a lot of flack, but used to catch a ton of flack when it first came about. And I just remind people, like, hey, just because you've got that progression, it's strict pull-up, kipping pull-up, chest to bar pull-up, muscle up. Another really solid progression. But when I got the muscle up, I didn't stop doing chest to bars. I didn't stop doing pull-ups, and I didn't stop doing strict pull-ups. They all build on each other. So by using this yearly kind of focus, we can take it back. You as a general member or athlete are going to see strict pull-ups, and you're going to see back to more kipping, and you're going to see that cycle every year. That's our target. So post kind of game season, we're going to go back to that. And it's not like, I know that some of you are on the fence about getting your first muscle up or whatever, and our goal is not to take you away from that. Our goal is to rebuild your foundation even better than it was last season, so now you can go back to muscle ups. You're going to knock out 5 or 6.
Yeah, I think it also kind of goes back to, like, we brought up like someone injuring their knee in basketball, right? So the more we work on these like kind of base strength movements, it raises your ceiling. Injury happens when you exceed your capacity for whatever that joint movement is, right?
Yep.
Like if you land, say, take two different people, one person's never trained, one person has 3 years of training under their belt, the person that's never trained has a low ceiling. So if he lands at all wrong, the knee pops, right? Or something tears or what have you. The person that's been training for 3 years has that higher ceiling because he has changed movement direction. He has built strength in different areas, more resiliency, right? So that ceiling's higher. Now he can get away with maybe landing after catching the ball a little bit funnier, right? And still be able to walk away from that. This is kind of where we look at like beginning of the season, we start setting up and kind of going through those more prehab exercises to build more resiliency, more strength. That lends itself better to the kipping movements, to the heavier weights, right? So kind of moving faster as we get
I just had one of our masters athletes say this morning that she connected with, we were doing a seated good morning, which is a kind of like a, not even a scale, but just a different version of a good morning or even a deadlift. Seated on a box or a bench holding two dumbbells or the barbell on your back. And she's in her 80s and she's been training with us for, I think, close to 3 years at this point. And today it was like, she said, I finally get flat back. She's had some back stuff going on, and it's kind of like nondescript, undiagnosed kind of like muscular back fatigue or pain or discomfort or whatever. So she's always kind of like being careful, stretching afterwards, and whatever. We always scale and modify appropriately. But you said the first time, hey, kept my back really flat in that movement, and my back feels really good. Yeah. And the coach in me goes, well, yeah. And it's like, it's taken her 2 or 3 years. She's like, I'm in my 80s, I'm still learning. I said, well, I've been doing this for 12 years and I'm 38. I'm still learning stuff. So it's a never-ending road, or what I like to call an organic process. It's always changing.
That kind of cuts back to a Greg Glassman I remember reading very early on. It's like, when you think you've mastered X movement, go back from the beginning, do it all over again.
Yep, absolutely. The good news is we're doing all that legwork for you. All you have to do is show up and do the stuff. So that is our take on practice versus competition, how to get your friends into the gym, and our competition update and what we've been watching.
I love it. Love it.
That's your Gambit update for Monday. Tune in next time. Hope to see you soon. Thanks.
Thanks.